in the Middle East. Thank you very much for being with us. What are your thoughts now about what the rest of the world should do about Syria, how it should help Syria reconstruct and rebuild and achieve, hopefully, some sort of path to stability and democracy?
Excellent questions, all. I think that, we have to recognize that those are, in a sense, three different things. They're going to happen concurrently in some ways, but they are three distinct decisions that various countries are going to make independently. If I were going to give a short answer to what I think various countries should be doing in Syria, it would be as little as possible. This is a time when Syrians are in this very, very difficult process of getting home, finding family, finding out if family are dead, discussing how they want to move forward. Any foreign intervention in that, even if it's privileging one group over another, is going to create distortions in the process that are ultimately not going to contribute to long-term stability. So my counsel would be give Syrians space to handle this amazing transition. Now, in terms of the reconstruction, that is a very difficult question. And, here I think we need to look at the world as a whole, because if you'll recall, when the Syrian displacement was at its height, there was a kind of donor fatigue because there were so many things going on in different parts of the world on displacement, and everyone was being tapped for funding. I think right now we've got a similar problem, because as horrendous as the damage is in Syria, in some ways it's much more complete and perhaps deliberate in Gaza. So some of the same people are saying, we are going to be tapped to be involved in reconstruction in Gaza. Do we want to commit too much right now? And then, of course, there's Ukraine. So, and I'm not ignoring the rest of the world, but these are three countries that are very much in similar areas, and the same countries are going to be asked to commit to reconstruction.
Okay, what about the United States in particular? Because we've got Antony Blinken, Secretary of State, heading out to the Middle East to see what the US role might be regarding Syria's future. But then also we've got Donald Trump about to come into the White House, back into the White House, saying Syria is a mess, to quote him, and the US should have nothing to do with it.
Yes. It's difficult for Syria to be having a transition just when the U.S. is going to be having one. I think that some of the problems that we have in Syria have spanned we, the United States, have spanned multiple administrations. So it's not the fault of only one person. There are also various issues that the United States has felt differently about. For instance, fighting ISIS in the Northeast, working with the SDF, which has its own set of demographic and political challenges, and then having a long, long, long time of hostility toward Assad, while at the same time hoping to be able to bring him to a peace table. So there's that history. But looking at a Trump administration, I was working on Syrian issues in Northeast Syria in the coalition against ISIS when President Trump was in his first administration. And his demand that we draw down the troops that we had in Northeast Syria to support the SDF resulted in bases being handed over to the Russians, and which was a huge PR coup for Russia. So, we need to think about how that's going to play. At the same time, of course, in the same truth tweet, he also said President Obama should have taken a stand on his red line. But is the United States supposed to intervene, or is it not supposed to intervene? President Trump doesn't seem to really know where he stands.
And just briefly, where do you see the future of Syria? My last guest was saying she was kind of hopeful, but also anxious and a bit nervous. I suppose the world is waiting to see. What is your hunch? Do you think it can stabilise? It can pivot towards some sort of democracy and stability?
I think Syria absolutely can. I think that Israeli invasions in the south and Turkish pressure on the north and demands for divisions within the country all hurt that process. So, when this all began, I was in Damascus, and I remember talking to people in the opposition about, you know, how is this going to work out in a way that doesn't involve civil war? And I remember them saying to me with utmost seriousness, Syria doesn't do civil wars. Iraq does, Lebanon does. Syria, we don't do civil wars. And that was absolutely true at the time. I think one of the problems, though, like with your first love, if you haven't done it before, it's hard to know how you come out of it. That's going to be part of the discussion.
Interesting analogy. Joanne, thank you very much indeed. Joanne Cummings,
My pleasure.
Director of Middle East Studies at Baylor University. Thank you very much for your time.